Detroit did it, and I know Detroit fan would tell you, no, you're wrong. And I get it. I wanted Tampa to get to about like the Detroit 35. I wanted it to get a little like, what the hell is going to happen? Is it going to come down to the 2-point conversion attempt?
Would have cost me money if they scored, but having to live in that narrative this week of 2-point conversions, when do you go for it? Down by 14, is it the right call? That would have been a fun world to debate in.
I don't mind it. I know people are outraged. My dad is one of these of like, I didn't like that they went for 2. And I'm like, I mean, I know Tennessee's kind of the outlier example people are going to use, but I like it. You're on the road. If you get it and you execute properly, which they highlighted on the broadcast, that was Mike Evans' fault.
Yes, it was.
Run into the DB. How receivers have not picked this up yet is beyond me.
A lot of them have, but that one, he's just fading back towards the pylon.
Stop backpedaling.
You can't do that because they're not going to throw the flag.
I didn't mind that going for 2 attempt. You're still only down 8, but admittedly, they wrapped it up pretty quickly. I wanted that drive to go a little longer for the suspense to build. Yeah. Baker, I thought, was really good in that game.
I agree.
I thought the first pick was more Mike Evans' fault. Kind of went through the hands there. It's a bad tip. It just lands somewhere. Brock Purdy got lucky in that sense a lot this weekend.
Totally.
We'll talk about that coming up. But just overall, a really good game where the Lions, like, it was an up and down thing. It was kind of Lionsy. They had a few possessions. Oh my God, are they going to blow this game? Are they not going to win? And then Tampa came back, and just a really good quality football game. Even if it wasn't perfect, it was a really good game.
Yeah, it picked up a lot, I would say, in the second half. The first half, it felt like they came out, kind of scored early. Detroit did at least, and they had settled in, and then their offense disappeared for a bit. Tampa gets the late score. All of a sudden, you're tied 10-10, and it was tighter than I think I imagined early on, and a lot of that was because of the way Baker Mayfield was playing when they could protect him. They had a really hard time picking up some of those slot corner blitzes early in the game, a lot of free rushers coming off the edge. I don't know if that's on him not getting rid of the ball when he's supposed to, not sliding the protection, the offensive line not picking it up, but those really killed a lot of early Tampa drives. And you mentioned the early pick wasn't on him. The last pick there, like, yeah, you want that one back, but you're down by 8. There's a minute and some change left. Like, you got to start kind of pushing the ball a little bit and forcing the issue. The pucker factor, though, in that stadium made that a great game because we know it's Detroit. We know their history. We know everything on the line. They get the 2-point stop. You have the ball. You have a chance to go ice the game. I love how aggressive Detroit is late in some of these games, but they falter obviously on that last drive. You have to kick it back. There is a 80,000 seat gulp that goes on of like, oh God, we're kicking the ball back. They just scored a touchdown pretty easily on their last drive. We're only up by 8. That had a lot of drama, and Detroit just had enough defense in the end to win it.
Well, we would talk about this with San Francisco and Green Bay. I always find it a little odd when people just conclude things based off of how the game goes. Like, well, San Francisco's going to lose because they barely beat Green Bay. Baltimore, unbeatable. They trounced the Texans. It's like, dude, we've all watched football enough to know that none of that's true.
You have good games, bad games. Sometimes you're your best, sometimes you're not.
Is Tampa Bay amazing to everybody? I mean, probably not, but they're feisty. They came in with nothing to lose, and they played kind of that way, and they gave Detroit a really good game. There was the moment you highlighted there, I almost text Sukanik because I'm not equipped with a brain of knowing how offensive line protections work. But in watching that replay and seeing it in real time, I don't know what protections are calling for Aiden Hutchinson to not be blocked.
There was a few of those in the second half too, yeah.
They didn't have a running back in the backfield to pick up any additional blitzers, and they show the right tackle. He's not even looking at Hutchinson, who's right there.
No.
And when he realizes Hutchinson's pass rushing, he slides over, but Hutchinson's... I'm just like...
You got nowhere to go.
In what protection are you not blocking the edge rusher who is the rookie of the year and one of the best pass rushers in the NFL? Yep. What protection calls for that?
It's a missing link somewhere. I don't know if it's Mayfield. I don't know if it's the offensive line.
How do you not even see him, though? He didn't even see him until he ran past him. Like, what are you doing? It's Aiden Hutchinson.
Some of the corner blitzes in the first half were really well disguised.
Yes,
and
they
so
were.
For Mayfield, it's like, I can understand that. He doesn't look like he's coming. You're looking to the left side of the field. You don't see him going after you. So those ones make sense. When you're not blocking their best pass rusher, there's an issue there. And it's either on Mayfield Mayfield not sliding it, not bringing him back over, or not finding the hot route that, hey, we're letting this guy come because everybody else is blitzing. I got to stop saying that word because I'm laughing now.
What?
I'm just not going to say it
Letting
again.
all the guys come?
Yeah, exactly. We don't need any more of that. Let's just throw a quick slant here. There's got to be somebody open. Maybe there's somebody in the flat. You have to get rid of the football quickly, and he just had no awareness that their best pass rusher was coming after him.
I mean, yeah, and so they end up losing the last drive. What was that? 1 play, 2 plays?
I want to say it was the second or third play of the drive.
Right? It was pretty early in that drive.
Yeah, he tried to force the ball over the middle and just underthrew it a hair and a great interception.
That was the throw. That was the he just, for some reason, didn't see Barnes right in front of the receiver.
See, and I actually...
He also had Godwin just a little to his left in an in-breaking route that, had he seen him, probably goes that direction.
Sure.
But again, it's the game-tying drive. Like, it's either going to end in heartbreak or you're going to have success. So, like...
I mean, yeah, here's what I would say on the... Like, I see your point of you underthrew it a little bit. There was a lot of traffic in the middle of the field. Not a great throw. I also hate, though, when quarterbacks don't take chances in those moments. Like, you get a lot of that late in games where you just throw checkdowns and you end up eating a ton of clock and you only get to, like, the 40-yard line. And it's like, are we even going to try and win the game here? Are you scared of throwing an interception? Who cares about your stat line? You're on your own 15
Niners in the first half against Green Bay had this.
Yes.
They were more worried about Love getting the ball back and settling for a field goal than actually going for a touchdown.
There's a minute, and so they ran the first play, and it was an inbounds catch, which is a horrible decision right out of the drive. So they started on their own 10. You got a 5-yard completion, and basically 30 seconds ran off the clock for 5 yards. There's a minute and 30 left on the clock, and you're at your own 15-yard line. And how do they have one timeout left?
I think they had one. Yes,
one, I believe, because they had to use.
They were stopping in the clock.
Yeah, they had 2 when the drive started.
Yeah. Right, and so. I mean, you got a long ways to go. Like, you got to take some chances, man. Yeah. And I know that's not the throw you want in that moment. I thought Baker Mayfield played a really good game outside of not seeing some of that pressure coming his way. But I thought he played really well. And you force the ball in that spot because you don't have any other choices. You're desperate when you're down by 8 with a minute and a half to go.
Let me ask you guys this. What's the story of the Lions for you? Is it, when you think of Lions, is it the head coach in a way that a lot of coaches don't necessarily get? Is it Goff? Is it Aaron Glenn? Is it the city? Like, what is when I say Lions, what comes to your mind?
I think it goes back to Campbell, their GM, everybody thought, it's another Lions. And I didn't understand. I didn't have a full appreciation of when they showed her in the booth.
The business gal, yeah.
So from the Ford family, who's actually running it now or took over when they hired Dan Campbell, and just how much they changed the organization. And I hope they get to advance further so we can learn more about that outside of Detroit.
And I think we will for sure this week as they get ready for the NFC title game. On that note, he's bringing up a sneaky good point, and people overlook this as if it was normal. There were some, they weren't high, but there was some expectation of like, okay, is Detroit going to take the step? Last year, they started 1-6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Lions in that situation, I think any bad team in sports, I think their fan base, and maybe they were even calling for it, are thinking, all right, the motivational rah-rah football bro guy is not working. Get the hell out of this. And she settled the nerves and said, we're staying the course.
We trust it.
And she was right. And they stayed the course. They fought to the end. They didn't make the playoffs, but they knocked Green Bay out of the playoffs at Lambeau Field. And they used that Hard Knocks redemption season. And they started the year by beating Kansas City, which coincidentally could be our Super Bowl matchup.
That'd be funny.
It's really an amazing story of patience, proper team building, and not always overreacting to the noise.
I think that's the theme of these playoffs is patience. Look what Green Bay did with Jordan Love. Obviously what Detroit has done.
I made fun of LaFleur for crying at halftime this year and said, this is not it, dude. Like, what is that?
I mean,
and now
we mocked that draft pick for every year he's been in the NFL.
Yeah.
And now look at him. They were great, and they almost won that game.
Rodgers didn't throw a single 300-yard game as his last year as a Packer. How many times did Love do it this year? 2, 3, 4? Like, he at least looked the part of a guy that was going to go do it for you.
I mean, I think when you look at the Lions, though, it is Dan Campbell. He rises above. He's very unique that way as a head coach. He's very personable. He's great in interviews. He is the way that he cares. It's so genuine, and in an era in which it feels like there's a lot of coaches that just say and do the right things and are kind of scummy people behind the scenes. We deal with this a lot in college. A guy's bouncing around job to job, right? You feel like you want to believe. You feel like you got the right guy. And at the end of the day, they're just the same as all the other guys who are bouncing around looking out for what's best for them. Dan Campbell has been this way, and I think Hard Knocks was great for them to kind of reveal who he was as a coach and some of the pregame speeches and pre-practice speeches that he gave. He is the face of that organization. And it's hard to think of a team and a style of play that better fits than what is going on in Detroit right now. I mean, they embody what that city is all about, and it's very easy to root for them.
Kevin Clark did a piece. He went to the first training camp with Dan Campbell, and he's tweeted this out every time Detroit's played, and I'm glad he does because it's remarkable. He said Detroit reminds him of Texas where he grew up, but with just different accents. He says a place built around family and hard work.
Yeah.
And then he gets emotional in the interview. And he says everything about this place, the bubble burst, housing, it hit everywhere, but it hit here. And then the auto industry, man, takes a hit, and the Lions have sucked for 30 years, and they're always the joke, year in and year out. Oh, the Lions, and this narrative. He continued, I just feel like this place fit me, man. It really did. Like I belonged, that I literally fit like a glove in Detroit. They love the Lions, they love football, and this place called out to me. It was like, you know what? You need a lot of these guys to know what you're about, that you understand their path. And if anybody could win in Detroit, could you imagine what it would be like to win in Detroit?
You're a legend, man. It's not going to New England where they've already won 6 or somewhere else where they hung a bunch of banners. You win there. You win in Detroit. I mean, you're an all-timer.
And I'm saying right now, like I'll be wearing a Niner gear on Sunday. I will also be sitting on my couch understanding all of America's rooting against the red and gold. And honestly, I don't say it often. They kind of should. It's such a good story. As a host, I love the story.
It's the Lions, man.
And
I freaking Lions.
I know he's kind of won the lottery in some ways, and he may not have sold all of you. I just think the Jared Goff thing is cool. Yeah. I know they were doing a lot of that with Baker Mayfield, and I thought kind of rightfully so. He kind of got railroaded out of Cleveland for a sexual predator. But Jared Goff going to Detroit, we all canceled that out too. We said, he's going to go rot away and become a backup.
They were terrible his first year there. Terrible.
That touchdown to St. Brown was a dime.
Yeah.
He dropped that perfectly.
He had a great game, and when he doesn't turn the football over, they're incredibly tough to beat. That'll be the challenge for him this week, going on the road, tough environment, really good defense. You cannot turn the football over. He's been clean so far in the playoffs, and they're winning because of that.